Well, my first memory is that we lived on 21st and Burleigh in the city of Milwaukee. My mother was from Romania and my father was from Germany. When I went to school, I could speak German or English. And then with the war, you couldn't even say ja in class because of the war against Germany. We had a big family. My dad had 2 sisters and a brother in Milwaukee, and my mother had 2 sisters, and I had lots of cousins. We did a lot of things with the family, and my father took a job in near Whitefish Bay, so we built a house in Whitefish Bay, and we moved the family. By that time, I had a sister. When I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we had dance classes. That's unusual for a middle school. We had a teacher that taught us how to dance and be polite to the girls and the girls polite to us. He said, if you go out on a date with a girl, he says, don't just park your car in the front and beep the horn. He says, go in and meet the parents. And be sure before you go, take a shower. That's the way he put it. An example of my athletic prowess, the first day I was there at noon, we were outside playing softball with the teachers, and I hit a home run. The pitcher was one of the teachers, so that when I got to high school, I was looked at as one of the premier players. That I could play guard on offense and linebacker on defense. As a sophomore, I beat out a senior right guard, and lucky for me, along the way, I recovered a fumble in the end zone, and I scored a touchdown. And all the senior linemen were envious that here's a young sophomore, he scores a touchdown, 6 points, in the newspaper under the name Busch. And in the old days, when I was in grade school, some guys had like 1 bar across the helmet, and most of the people didn't have any bars across the helmet. Your old brain had absorbed the shocks, but there weren't that many shocks. And shoulder pads, hip pads, thigh pads, knee pads, and high top shoes. Everybody had high top shoes. Well, the football team was very good. My sophomore year, that team was ranked nationally. Junior year, we also had a good team. I think we lost 1 game that year. First year we didn't lose any. Second we lost 1. My senior year, we were not supposed to be so good. We only lost 2 games. It was a good season. I was honored both my junior year and senior year to be All Suburban Conference right guard. And through that notoriety, you might say, I got solicited to go to colleges for football scholarship. Marquette was one of them. An Ivy League school, Wisconsin. But one of the alumni, who was a company owner from Purdue, happened to get my name and asked if I wanted to be recruited at Purdue, and I said sure. And so I went to Purdue. It's an engineering school, and it was away from home, and I decided that I would take the scholarship at Purdue. When I was a sophomore and came back, I realized I needed a date, and I pulled out the thing, and there was Marilyn Rank, who I knew from school. She was a year behind me in school. But this time I gave her a call and asked her if she wanted to go out on a date. And she made some kind of excuse that no, she couldn't go out with me tonight, but some other time maybe you could call. And then the 2 of us ended up at the same party, and she with a date and me without. So, but that was the last time that happened. Football and studying were 2 different things, and my first goal was to get a good education. My second goal was to play football. I really wanted to do both. As a freshman, we practiced every day, of course. And then at the end of the season, they chose up teams between all the freshmen, and we were playing at a high school stadium against each other. And it was great. We were playing fine until I went after. I recognized a screenplay to my right, and here the guy caught the ball, and I was right dead to rights to knock them down, tackle them, and yet somebody from the other team laid a crossbody block on me before I got to the ball carrier, and my leg was in the ground, and I hyperextended my knee and caused great damage to my knee, which had to be operated on.
So the therapy in the 50s, physical therapy in the 50s was pretty much non-existent. So they didn't do a lot of it. They did surgery on people and then they let them heal and use crutches and things like that. There was a lot of downtime. So they would not be able to do any activity for a really long period of time, which then causes muscle wasting or atrophy, which means that those muscles weaken significantly. So then once they were able to go back and do anything, they were really, really weak. In ACL now, rehab takes between 6 to 9 months to rehab. So those ACL injuries, the most significant ones, those people still probably won't play in a season. So a football player who gets an ACL injury anytime in the season, they can expect to pretty much be out for 6 to 9 months and then be able to return hopefully that next season.
And if that would have happened, I probably would have continued to play. But the way things were, it just was not good. And many times it would, because it wasn't stable, it would go out of whack, out of joint, and then come back, and then it would puff up, and then I'd have to limp around. And the best way for me to get back to normal again is to put my leg in a splint and walk on crutches for about a week.
They keep trying to do a lot of research on it because the ACL tear rate is really high, especially because kids are getting into sports so much younger. Patellar tendon cadaver, sometimes they'll use cadaver tendons, sometimes, and there's a newer technique that they're using some other tendons. So there's a couple new techniques that they're trying too, with even some synthetics and things like that to repair the torn ACLs.
And so now I have two new artificial knees. Eventually I had my hip replaced, and then that was replaced. So I had the hip done a second time. By the senior year, we were a couple. I proposed, and a year after I graduated, we got married. And then we had 5 children. I don't know how good I would have gotten playing and building more muscle and learning through the years, how good I could have gotten, and maybe I would have become a pro. It certainly was not that I didn't want to become a pro. It's just that how good could I have gotten if I wouldn't have been injured. So I had to give up that part of the dream. My father, he probably only had 6th grade education in Germany, and then he had to come here and learn the English language and work hard all his life, and he wanted to see his son graduate from college. And I did too. And I did.